is June 2015, numbers 14 to 19. So 14 says, which quadratic function has the largest maximum? Well, a maximum is the highest point of the graph, and all of these graphs are going to be parabolas, and the maximum point will be where the vertex is. So one way to go about this problem is to find the vertex. So the formula for the vertex, to find the x value of the vertex, is negative b over 2a. And what you could do is find the x value of the vertex for these first two problems and then plug that x value in to find the y value. And we care about the y value here because the largest maximum would be the highest y value. So I can start with choice 1. Choice 1 is 3 minus x times 2 plus x. So what I could do is I could type this into my calculator. That's one option. I could type, instead of h of x, it's really y. I could type in y equals 3 minus x, all in parentheses, and then times, in another set of parentheses, 2 plus x. And if I look at my table, I'll see that I have values where 6 is looking to be the highest point. Okay, it goes something like negative 1, 4, 0, 6, 1, 6, 2, 4. So if you look here, if you notice that 6 is the highest value, but remember there's going to be a vertex that's in between these two values. So it's going to be a little bit above. And the vertex, if you actually figure it out, it was 0.5 for the x value and 6.25 for the y value. So we know that the highest point in this graph is 6.25. From this table alone, you would know that it's a little bit above 6. Okay, in choice 3 over here, here's another one we could type in. And if you looked at the table, you would see that it looks like 11 is going to be roughly around the highest point. And if you did it algebraically, you would find that the highest y value is 11.2. Okay, and that is when x is negative 1.2, and I used this formula to find the x value, and when I plugged that x value into my equation, I ended up with a y value of 11.2. So we know that it can't be choice 1 anymore because 11.2 is bigger than 6.25. Let's move on to number 2. Choice 2 says, well, if we look at the table, 9 is the highest value in our table, and it looks like it's probably going to be a value between 1 and 2, so maybe like 1.5, and so maybe the highest point is 9.5. It's a little bit above 9, so it's not going to be choice 2. Choice 4 is a graph, and we can see from the graph that our y value is 1, 2, 3, 4, roughly 4.5 units high, so it's not choice 4, it has to be choice 3. Number 15, if f of x equals 3 to the power of x and g of x equals 2x plus 5, at which value of x is f of x less than g of x? Well, here we have f of x, but remember that's really just y. So when I type this in my calculator, I'm going to type in y equals 3 to the power of x. And again, this g of x, that's really just a y, and I can just type in to y equals 2x plus 5, and what I could do is look at the table to figure out when is my f of x function, the y value in f of x, smaller than the y value in g of x. So here is what my table will look like. I'm going to type in 3 to the x first, so that's going to be my f of x column, and g of x second. Okay, and that's going to be over here. And if I just start with the numbers and I look at negative 1, when x is negative 1, well, my y value for f of x is 0.3 repeating, and my y value for g of x is 3. So let's see if that works so far. Is f of x smaller than g of x? Well, yes. 0.3 is smaller than 3. So, number 1 is the right choice, and I don't even have to check the rest. 16. Beverly did a study this past spring using data she collected from a cafeteria. She recorded data weekly for ice cream sales and soda sales. Beverly found the line of best fit and the correlation coefficient as shown in the diagram below. So it looks like ice cream bars sold versus cans of soda sold, and there is a strong positive correlation as we can see, and our R value is 0.96, which also tells us it's a strong positive correlation. It says, given the information, which statements can correctly be concluded? Choice 1 says, eating more ice cream causes a person to become thirsty. Choice 2 says, drinking more soda causes a person to become hungry. And choice 3 says there is a strong correlation between ice cream sales and soda sales. Well, all this is telling us is that as the ice cream bars sold, so do the cans of soda. So the only thing that we can conclude is choice 3, that there is a strong correlation, there's a strong relationship between ice cream sales and soda sales. We're not saying that one causes the other, we're just saying that there is a correlation, there seems to be a pattern. Okay, so the only choice that would work is 2, which is option 3, that there is a strong correlation. Okay, number 17. The function v of t equals 1,350 times 1.017 to the power of t. Represents the value v of t in dollars of a comic book 2 years after its purchase. The yearly rate of appreciation of the comic book is. Well, if you remember, here is the formula for exponential growth. And the reason I know this is growing exponentially is because it is a value that is greater than 1. If it was less than 1, then it would be decay. So, 1.017. Well, the R value, since we're adding it to 1, R value must equal 0.017. So as a percentage, now all I have to do is move my decimal place over 2 units. And I'm doing that because I'm multiplying it by 100. So if I move it over 2 units, I will end up with 1.7%, which is choice 2. Number 18. When directed to solve a quadratic equation by completing the square, Sam arrived at the equation x minus 5 over 2, the whole thing squared, equals 13 over 4. Which equation could have been the original equation given to Sam? Okay. When you're completing the square and you have a number inside the parentheses, this 5/2 right here, that is going to be your b over 2 value. That value is always the number inside the parentheses when you square it. So that means your b over 2 is equal to a negative 5 over 2, which must mean that b is a negative 5. So automatically I can eliminate choice 1 and choice 2 because in choice 1 and 2 the b value is a positive 5, which is not true. Okay, so now what I can do is figure out what is my b over 2 squared value. So b over 2 squared is going to be my negative 5 over 2 squared, which turns into 25 over 4. Now remember, when completing the square, you are going to add this b over 2 squared value to both sides of the equation. But you're going to do that after the fact, after you get the x's away from the numbers without any x's. So let's try choice 3 and see if it works. So what we would have to do here, x squared minus 5x plus 7, is we would have to subtract 7 from both sides. So we're left with x squared minus 5x equals a negative 7. If we add our b over 2 squared value, this 25 over 4, to the negative 7, what we'll end up with is a negative 3/4, which means it can't be choice 3. Let's double check to make sure it is choice 4. If we subtract 3 from both sides, we're left with x squared minus 5x equals negative 3. And when I add my 25 over 4 to both sides of the equation, I will end up with, on the right-hand side, 13 over 4, which is what I want. So that is choice 4. Okay, let's just erase some of this so we have room for the next problem. Okay, so in number 19, it says the distance a free-falling object has traveled can be modeled by the equation d equals 1/2 at squared, where a is acceleration due to gravity and t is the amount of time that the object has fallen. What is t in terms of a and d? Well, there is always one of these questions on a Regents. So we need to know how to solve for a specific letter. So they want you to solve for t. So what we're going to do is, well, I'm going to rewrite the problem over here. D equals 1/2 at squared. So first we have a fraction, and to get rid of fractions, you multiply everything by the LCD. In this case, the only denominator that you have is 2, so that has to be your LCD. So if we multiply everything over here by 2 and multiply everything over here by 2, I'm left with 2d equals, well, my 2's cancel, and I'm just left with at squared. If you wanted to put a 1 here, you could, but you don't need to, because 1 times anything is just that same thing. So the next step is we're going to do the opposite of multiplying by a. To get rid of the a, we're going to divide by a, so that t is alone, so we're left with t squared equals 2d over a. And the last step, opposite of squaring, is to square root. So that means that t is equal to the square root of 2d over a, which is choice 2.